p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you are on Nerd Initiative YouTube, and it's time to sit back and hear about a tale that is really kind of fitting for Good Neighbors Day, as they say, because we're going to be diving into one of the most obscure stories in the Justice League mythos, but not with the characters you think. So sit back, grab a beverage, make yourself comfy, and let's get ready to turn a page.
Welcome to Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. Each week, the NI Bullpen will be covering the world of comics, talking to creators, deep diving into some fantastic stories, and much more. Now let's hand it over to the team and turn a page.
What is going on, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of Nerd Initiative's Turn a Page. My name is Ken M. You know me as the host of the ODPH podcast, but I'm also Nerd Initiative's comics editor-in-chief. To, I would say my left, but he's not in studio this week, but fear not, he's braving through the elements. He's fighting to get on the stage for you today. You know me, I can't do his intro proper. Sir, let the people know you're in the building.
Coming at you live and direct, straight from my special lazy boy in my sanctum of nerddom, I am Off the Cuff Tom, your pop culture connoisseur. Thank you so much, Ken M. and Nerd Initiative. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. And this week's edition of Turn a Page, we got a lot going on too, and a special announcement for the end of the show as well. But we thought for this day, which is Good Neighbors Day, Tom?
That it is. I try to base my life around, what silly day it is. And we found out that it was Good Neighbors Day. So we were having breakfast one morning and, we were having the thing and we thought, well, let's think of some buddies, some good buddies. And everybody goes Superman, Batman, Green Arrow, Green Lantern, Spider-Man, and everybody else in New York. And then why not Booster Gold and Blue Beetle?
Boom. One of the most iconic duos of all time, really stepping out of the shadows of the pages of Justice League International, one of the booms in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, that really kind of just won fans over because, let's face it, they're not exactly the top echelon of DC heroes.
But they're the top echelon of those B-level characters.
Oh, absolutely. Because when you think about it, the guys have really carved their own niche with fans. They're very ones that really win you over because they're really not that great. And they're really ones that just sit there and you really sit back and kind of go like, why are they here? And why should I even care? But yet they still find a way to entertain you. And what we thought we'd do is dive into one of the more obscure stories going on with them. And that is, I can't believe it's not the Justice League from Justice League Classified issues 4 through 9. So I know on the screen it says for 8, but I honestly thought it went one more issue, like from where the covers were to everything going on with that. I really thought that it was wrapped up at 8, but man, 9 threw a curveball with that. So we are going to be talking about spoilers about this book and give you a little history about what's going on with that as well. But Tom, like I say, when you started opening this up and really started diving into the history about this book, what is it about it that really won you over?
It's a total different idea of what you would consider as a Justice League issue. It's not the Big Seven. It's not a Superman. It's not a Batman. It's the B-Leaguers. It literally is a Justice League. It's not even Justice League International. The best part is it's like so street level. It's so much fun. And this whole series reads like a sitcom. Like you're watching NBC or that, must-see TV or TGIF or any other millennial reference of a block of TV, that you had to watch as a kid.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's something about this, like I say, when it really is taken back to a time period that we have to remember the Justice League has not always been the big seven at DC Comics. And it has had a very interesting history amongst fans throughout the years. And especially with the lineup that was here that really got brought to fans' attentions by DeMatteis and Keith Giffen and Kevin Maguire on the book, they really were going some places with these heroes and really having a lot of fun with them. And that's something that when you're watching these heroes play out, like, yeah, the stakes are high. It's always like, good versus evil. But what they did here is they really just dived into what makes them quirky, what makes them relatable, and really ran with it. And especially,
Absolutely.
Coming off the heels of a series formerly known as the Justice League, which was a widespread success, and obviously tying in a lot of B-level heroes and really winning them, the fans over, that when they decided to go back for a sequel, it was just, insane to think about in my eyes, because when you really say, like, okay, how is this working? Is this really going to take off? And yet it does, and they capture the magic again. Because, like I say, a lot of these heroes came out of the pages of like the early, the late 80s, early 90s Justice League, when they did the, re-ups with Justice League International, Justice League Europe, Extreme Justice at one point too. And to really kind of tie it in with what is going on with such characters that we know as Maxwell Lord, who infamously is in Wonder Woman 84, that was not exactly the same one you saw in the comics. And now you see him bankrolling this team, and they're now known not as the Justice League. Tom, what is their name?
Super buddies.
Yes. Which, I mean, how amazing is that? I mean, it
It's
fits
super.
to the lore of this team. Like, that's something that, as we see this play out, like I say, when you see them all hit the screen and you see them all just jump in and really are like, look at that lineup right on there too, because you have the Elongated Man, Maxwell Lord, Blue Beetle, Booster Gold, Elron, Lord's robotic assistant, and Fire. And just to see like how this is all going with that cover alone, like Kevin Maguire's art is just fantastic with this. You're going to find something fun about this, and especially with how the font is written too. Like, it's just something that really tips you off with Joel Rubinstein's art. Like I say, it's one that, sitting there as a fan, you're in for something great, and you're in for something that's a little more laid back and a little more, relaxed, shall we say. Because as where this story jumps in, Maxwell Lord is pulling up to his strip mall headquarters because he's now set up the Super Buddies as the DC version of the Heroes for Hire.
Yep.
So, Tom, when you're seeing this come out, like, how are you reacting that a Justice League team is now working out of a strip mall?
It's hilarious. It also threw me for a loop because I didn't realize Maxwell Lord was on the semi good guy side at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing coming into this, it was hilarious to see it, connecting all the characters together. And it's nice. This is actually one of the first books I've ever read that has the Elongated Man. So knowing Ralph from, that other show with who, he got kicked out off of, either way, to see that, that whole Arrowverse. Thank you. It's nice to see it. I mean, we had hints of Booster Gold. We know of Ted Kord now from the new Blue Beetle movie. I, of course, know Fire from the Justice League cartoons, Fire and Ice. I know she had a special direct episode, but to see this is like, okay, what are we doing? Why is Maxwell Lord here? It really did throw me for a loop.
Yeah, it was one thing that I knew when they redid Justice League in the late 80s, early 90s, and he was a big part of that lineup. And I always kind of remember him with Justice League International. Like, that's where I kind of pick up on him. That it was kind of cool to see that, okay, he's now evolved to this. And you always had the feeling like something was off with him. Like no matter what incarnation you've seen him in, he's always been somebody that stood out, and not for the right reasons, but it's like, why is he so involved with this? And yet we find out way after this series what he was all about. And it does play into Infinity Crisis, which is a whole different ball of wax, I should say, too. And to see him now setting up shop and kind of having the everyday feel go on here, it's a very cool moment. But it does play into just some really quirky interactions, especially with Sue Dibney, the elongated man's wife. And their interesting
And her condition.
back and forth. Yes. Oh, my God. I mean, talk about the opening moments when you see them together.
Sue is just so. For those of you who don't know, we've seen Sue again in the Arrowverse. This is not the same Sue. Let me just tell you flat out, not the same person.
Absolutely.
You're going to think of. What's great about this version of Sue is that she picks up on the fact that down the street, down the strip mall, there's a bar opening up. oh no,
Hmm.
oh no, right? And she's trying to be all sweet and innocent, and nice. And then we find out that bar is owned by an old Metropolis crime boss who's reformed his ways, but she's just on that mission of he's a bad guy, bad bar, and like she is so just she's so headstrong. She's blind to everything else that's going on right now. She doesn't pay attention to Max. She's a lovable ditz,
Yeah. Yeah.
in my
It's,
opinion. I wouldn't. Ditz is a hard word. Is probably the wrong word, but that's all I got right now.
well, she definitely plays into just oblivious to what's going on. And it's something about the writing too with Geffen and DeMatteis that they really kind of turn everybody's character up to 11. And it's something when you see the butting of the heads between her and Maxwell, it really goes in some different directions. And especially when Ralph comes in there, and Ralph gets like obsessed with this idea that his wife is pregnant and is like just kind of running with that idea during this is happening. And
It's a whole running gag.
yeah, it's,
All 6 issues.
yeah, like it's crazy to see how they drug it out. And like I say, just when you think like the joke is going to stop, no, they keep running with it, which is something to the writing of this book. Like I say, it's a very interesting piece because, like I say, you see a lot of stuff that you won't see today, but it was in that time period too, where it's just a lot of stuff is just turned up to 11, and you're just seeing like a lot of really questionable behavior from some of these heroes.
I don't think that this book could have been written in the past, say, 7 years.
Yes, I fully agree. I mean, it's something to take out of the time period.
It's a
it was
product
in.
of the times.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's one that will win you over and it will do, that and really kind of describe, that era too. Because like I say, it's late 80s, early 90s, and it's a lot of just interesting personalities, as we say. Because as we go further in this book, you'll really see how this takes off because once you see the initial confrontation going on with the bar opening next door, the story does break away to where you see Booster Gold and Blue Beetle discussing the world, shall we say, and just how their demeanor and banter back and forth is just so off the charts of Booster Gold being just oblivious and really not picking up of like what I'm doing is wrong because Blue Beetle's like trying to talk to him about his wife that's going to die eventually. He's going to inherit money, but she's not dying for 30 years because you have to remember Booster Gold is a man out of time who stole a fancy suit to come back and make himself into a hero. One of the most egotistical characters of all time, but yet he wins you over when you least expect it. So Tom, when
He's
you're
your favorite lovable idiot, and the back and forth that's going on between those two is really that locker room kind of talk that guys typically have. That kind of style. But you always get the one guy that is the straight man, or the somewhat voice of reason. It's really enjoyable, especially knowing that they start talking over the fact that Fire and Mary Marvel are going to be moving in together. So
yeah,
let me hedge my bets here, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
She's called Fire for a reason.
Oh, exactly. Like you just see that Booster is just oblivious to picking up on that in the world. And that's something, like I say, you see this a lot throughout this story is a lot of these characters just don't get what's going on. Like you see with Ralph thinking his wife is pregnant and she never is. And she keeps screaming at him, but he's just completely oblivious to this. You see the Booster can't pick up on the fact that what he's saying out loud is not exactly good and something to be saying anyway. So Ted Kord is trying to be the voice of reason the best he can. And it just really doesn't play out. And then let alone we go back to the bar scene. And there is an interesting dynamic, and I brought him up on the screen, that you see him make his appearance. And
Who's that guy?
And that is the one and only Guy Gardner, who has always been, let's face it, one of the biggest jerks in comics. I mean, you can't say otherwise. Chat, feel free to throw your opinion in. But Guy has always been, not exactly a great teammate, if you will. He's always been just there because he has powers. But I mean, much in the same vein of someone like you've seen in recent years, the U.S. agent coming on the Avengers, West Coast, and different mashups of teams. There's always a character that's there because they have superpowers, but they're not exactly team players, if you will. And Guy, especially with how he's written here, is definitely reflecting that because he's very chauvinistic. He's very disrespectful, and every
He's
single
very Guy.
oh yeah, he's very Guy, and especially with how Keith Giffen has written him in the past too. In my opinion, like he's always been like turned up way past 11, and his personality, like you can't help but really hate him when you see him. Like he just drives me nuts when I see him in the story. But that's also kudos to the writing of this, that they really have taken that personality trait of him and really ran with it. And like you can't sit back or can't help but sit back as a reader and just go, "Oh, I see how this is." And especially when he's basically saying like, "Yeah, I'm setting it up next door, we're going to, have some, fun here," because obviously he is just sitting there ripping on every other member of the team. And it ultimately winds up going back to Booster Gold because when they decide to go to the Justice Society of America's headquarters, where Ted is in very good standing with Power Girl, Booster does something that, well, is only Booster-esque, shall we say. He winds up getting into Dr. Fate's trophy room, shall we say,
office, possibly.
his office, where he has a lot of fixtures. And especially if you know anything about Dr. Fate, the mystic master of the DC universe, you probably shouldn't be messing around and touching anything there. I mean, that's just, shall we say it's an unwritten rule? I don't know. But Booster decides to take it upon himself because he's still mulling over the fact of what Ted said to him on the flight over. And for some reason, he just gets it into his, very airheaded brain that he's going to wish that they're all, damned to hell. Because why, Tom? Reasons.
Reasons.
Yes. Because
I have a shirt that says that.
Oh, I appreciate that. It's a great piece of merchandise. So if you want to find that, odphpodcast.com. Or, we have other links for that as well. But as we see now, the group has now been damned to hell. And it's a situation that I don't think they're really grasping as well, too, because when you see the initial lineup wind up there, and it's Fire, it's Blue Beetle, it's Booster, and it's Mary Marvel who's with them, it's a very interesting dynamic that has now been cast there, because they are basically going, "Booster, what did you do?" And he's like, "I'm just messing around. I didn't think it was going to go off." And then sure enough, they wind up there. And they have to make a cell phone call. And of course, they call Fire, and she's like, "Wait, what?" Or they call Sue Dibney, and basically are trying to get to them and say like, "Hey, we're in hell. We need backup."
Whose service plan do they have? I mean, it was hinted Verizon, but I don't think they have coverage down there. I mean, if you call them for customer service, that's where you get sent.
Yeah. I don't know, but I think that was a gold mine they should have ran with. Like I say, this was a situation that you just have to roll with and really kind of play into as well, because they're connecting to the real world, and they're basically saying, "Yeah, we're trapped down here." And Fire is getting so mad because basically there's one person that can help her, and that's Guy Gardner. And she winds up getting so mad, she melts the phone. And their only way of communication just goes completely up in smoke. So while they're there, they wind up getting recruited, shall we say, into working at a interesting place of business. And that is a
come and work with me. Give me fries, a number 3.
Yes. Well played, because they run into Etrigan the Demon, a long-standing DC character. Oh, he's fantastic. He is absolutely amazing. So they wind up getting forced to work in Beelsberger, who you can see on the screen. And basically hell is exactly what you think it is, because it's not exactly endearing to them. Booster is sitting there and basically saying like, this is not what I envisioned. And Ted is sitting there just like, you're my best friend. I'm glad you finally realized something, but you're not helping matters. And just to see their back and forth here too, because Booster is just sitting there, just it's sinking in like, yeah, I screwed up, and I screwed up bad. And
Now, looking at this cover, I want one of those little French fry hats just because it has the little horns. I have worked a few jobs where I've had to wear those type of covers, and just to have that, like, that's too cool. So,
yo,
like, Etsy, I'm coming for you.
oh my God, yeah, absolutely. It's something amazing to see just the detail that Kevin Maguire put in this, because you have that, sense of, absurdity here that they're working at a fast food place in hell, but it works for the story because let's face it, anytime you get this team together, and especially you're dealing with Dr. Fate and they tie in Etrigan, like everything goes a little crazy. And especially when you're dealing with magic in the DCU, it's something that I don't think they dive into enough per se, but when they do it and they really want to have some fun with it, like this is a perfect example of that. So as they wind up, in their new work environment, well, Ralph kind of comes up with an idea that is, he runs by Guy, and of course, Guy winds up being the one to figure out, okay, well, if we're going to have to save him, we're going to have to go down there ourselves. So he winds up convincing Power Girl, well, basically, he takes her hostage and wishes the same wish that Booster did. And they wind up going where? Right to hell in a handbasket, as the cover says here for issue number 7. And it's a fun little situation here because it's basically Guy has to go down there and find them and more or less reason with the demons that are down there that, yeah, this is a mistake and we really need to fix this. And Etrigan basically kind of reverses the decision he made about keeping them. I mean, Tom, when you're seeing this play out, like what's going through your heads as you're watching this all unfold?
I must say, it must be got to get rid of these guys. You see, they cannot serve the burgers true. Get rid of them out of hell. They must do.
Yeah, like it's funny to see just how they flip it, because basically they're so annoying there. The demons don't want them in hell. Like that's literally what comes down to. And it goes.
They got the massive GTFO.
Oh yeah, like simple. It's crazy to see that it played out that way, but it's absolutely the truth. And you see that like this is like the crowning achievement of Booster, because he now feels like a weird sense of redemption, in my opinion, like when he's seeing this play out. And it's like, no, there really is nothing redeeming about this at all. So you shouldn't be taking a victory lap, but he is. But they do kind of offer a weird deal here as well. And the deal is they're allowed to escape and go back, but they can't look backwards, because they do wind up running into somebody that is very much tied to Guy Gardner, very much tied to fire, and that is Ice. And when you see that she's in hell, I mean, Tom, what's your reaction to seeing this?
Just like this, man. I didn't, it was odd for me to see at the beginning of Fire without Ice, because you always consider them together.
Mm-hmm.
And look at that hat. Look at that hat.
Yeah.
You always see Fire and Ice together, and I figured, oh, well, maybe they're taking a break, or maybe something else is going on. Again, I'm not familiar with what's going on in this series. I know the characters, I know the lore, I don't know the stories. I should get that on a shirt. I know the characters and the lore. Anyway,
Yeah.
But to turn around and see Ice in hell, damn near, for lack of a better term, melted my heart.
It brought a little seriousness back to the story, and that's something that the writing team has always found a way to do. And it's kind of crazy to see it play out, but at the end of the day, like, yeah, this is kind of a wild story. But when you add the emotional element here, because when Ice dies, it does haunt the members of this team, especially Fire, who is so close with her, and the Guy Gardner, who she had a relationship with. So when they find her, they basically figure out a way to, take her back. And basically the demons are just like, yeah, we're so tired of seeing you guys react to seeing Ice. Yeah, just get out of here. And so it's a little combination of the annoyance and a little combination of that. And as they're going, Fire actually slips up and looks back like it's a mistake that's happened. And then once that happens, Ice disappears. And you see just an emotional moment that I really think is smart how they tied this all in together because
Oh yeah.
for having such a just a hilarious story, you got to add a little heart to it. And this is the moment that if you're a longtime reader of JLI, you're going to get that moment. But even if you're just connecting, like you see the reactions of Guy Gardner, who, I mean, let's face it, as you see him earlier in the issues or the story here, he's somebody that is really just rude and crass, and you think he doesn't care. But to see that he
The
actually,
word is prick. The
yes,
word is prick.
but when you see that happen too, and especially how he's brought back to, reality, like he has a chance to not even have like redemption, but to have some happiness, like some true happiness. And to see it go away, like you see the emotional breakdown that him and Fire have. And it's just such an emotional scene as it plays out. Like I say, it's one that you're not expecting to see. And once it happens, you're just like, oh man. But once they come back to Earth, well, Earth is not exactly what they think it is because it appears that everything has been turned upside down. Literally. You have Nort, who is a legendary Green Lantern, who is giant size and rampaging through the city. You have
Kaiju.
yeah, basically. You have Mary Marvel, who's you can see on the cover here is definitely not the same Mary Marvel that we know.
Not complaining.
Yeah. And you see that everything here is just a real twisted version of the Earth they know. So you have Booster Gold, who's even more dim-witted, can I say that, than we saw him in this run, working at not a strip mall, but at a strip club where Maxwell Lord is running and Sue Dibney is working at. So when you're seeing this parallel universe play out, Tom, I mean, what is going through your head when you're seeing this?
Well, before we got to the idea of parallel universe, I'm like, well, what is I had to figure out what the heck is going on to begin with. And then on top of it, like, did we go out the wrong door? Did we go to a parallel Earth? Is this another dimension? Is this another circle of hell? Is this, another thing out of Dr. Fate's, consortium of knickknacks? It's just a whole, it made you really think for a second, like, what the heck is going on, to get some semblance of where you're at in the whole DC universe. And then to figure out, oh, well, maybe it's another dimension, really did help in some regards. And to see these characters that were an issue two ago perfect sitcom type characters, now to the point of the sitcom tropes of the dumb friend,
Mm-hmm.
like the quintessential dumb friend, was a step down in their characters, but also a step up in the writing because we got to see two different sides of them.
Yeah. No, I agree with you too. I mean, I figured that them leaving hell was not going to go without a price, no matter what. Like, sure, you can leave. You've annoyed us enough, and plus, we can't stand seeing Guy Gardner, completely break down here. After seeing Ice, it's like, yeah, get out of here. But it wasn't going to be an easy road home. And as they now walk into this very different universe, it's also causing more problems because they basically realize like we're not where we should be. And seeing Mary Marvel run into Mistress Mary, as she's known on this universe too, it's
Yes, please.
it's a wild scenario too because you do see Captain Marvel there, and he is just not the Shazam that we know from the DC universe, and they definitely have some fun with his character.
He's definitely not. Every time I read him, I kind of thought that it was either like a little Tweety Bird going off, Tweety Bird, Mike Tyson at the same time. So when I was fighting there with Miss Power Girl,
Mhm.
it might even had a little Bobby Boucher in there too. It was kind of funny that it twerps.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing that they really ran with. Like they completely flipped the characters that and we're really having so much fun with it. Like that's the one thing you could definitely tell, especially with this writing too, that they just really wanted to illustrate like, yeah, it's a parallel universe. We're going to completely flip these characters 180. They're still going to be turned up to 11 because that's how the story kind of goes. And you see that it's just getting worse as it's going. And no matter what they're trying to do, it's not getting fixed. And then you see that, they have to go deal with, Nort, who's just giant size tearing through the city, even though questionable hygiene. Can we say that all easily, Tom?
Yeah. Smells like dog.
Yeah, like there's a really interesting panel in there, and I could not put it up on screen. That kind of illustrates that yeah, this is getting a little more crazy than we thought. So as they're dealing with that, they're also dealing with trying to deal with Booster, who's the bartender, or he works at the strip club, and also a familiar face that's working as the big bouncer, and that's Metamorpho, who
Yeah,
long-standing DC hero. Which I mean, like I say, I loved how they took some characters and were really running with them, and
and
gave
he
that
looked
whole
like
idea.
shit.
Oh yeah, like I mean, well, they wanted to illustrate like this is not a great world that they wound up on.
Yeah,
So when
we
you're
got
seeing these,
sexy Marvels, we got Dominatrix
Mhm.
Marvels over here, and then we got Metamorpho, who's always been that good, nice, big, barrel-chested, and in some interpretations, that nice, slick jawline, and everything. But no, we got a schlub.
Yeah. It was crazy to see, but it fits the story. And like I say, when you see DeMatteis and Geffen write this, and like I say, everybody's turned up so much on the personalities. Like that's the big takeaway from here is like if you're looking for something that's definitely not your average Justice League story, like this is your book. And you see that, yeah, the heroes are trying to find a way to win the day because it's like, okay, we have to stop Nord. We're losing this battle, and now we have to deal with this new era of not super buddies, but the power posse, if you will, because that's what they're referred to as.
Mm-hmm.
And to see like basically how everything has just been changed. They have a real tough time dealing with this, even though they're trying to do good. But then suddenly, like just like that, they're brought back to reality because Dr. Fate, who was unavailable at the beginning of the story, finally comes back to the JSA headquarters and is like, "Why were you grabbing my stuff?" And to see the reaction, like Booster was still just like, it was there. I didn't think it was gonna be that serious, and just kind of like the look on his face, like, what are we doing here? I mean, I really thought it kind of brought everything to a nice point because then you have Ted talking with Maxwell Lord, and everything just kind of ends on a very very solid note. And there wasn't one that was like completely over the top, but it ends like where they could definitely come back to the series and really have some fun later if they wanted to. But obviously, different things happen in the DCU. Didn't happen for reasons. Not to say they couldn't just come back and do a timepiece later, but it just kind of ends very much like, it's another day at the office for the Super Buddies. So, I mean, that being said, Tom, what would you say is like the real characteristics that stood out for you with this story?
Well, going into this, I really thought that this was going to be a Booster Gold and Blue Beetle because that was the premise that we were looking this up on. But I got to say that the standouts in here, one were Guy Gardner, definitely, because you got to see a different side of him as much as a prick as he is.
Mm-hmm.
And Fire as well. You got to see her emotions that she was dealing with uh, after the loss of Ice. So
Mm-hmm.
you could definitely see she was at a different point of who we know her to be, that strong, independent woman. She was on the razor's edge at most points.
Yeah. No, I have to agree with you. I thought the characterization for as being such an over the top story, I thought they played into enough that it still wins fans over. And it's still one that like you as a reader don't get too lost in the story. Like going into this like, yeah, this is not going to be your average story that you're going to see. And they really kind of tied into, making Guy Gardner, I don't want to say a redeemable character because let's face it, he really isn't. But I think it's cool that they were really trying to give the readers something different with him. Like, yeah, he's chauvinistic as all can be, rude, crass, just an absolute horrible human being. But yet, there's still something endearing about him when push comes to shove that you can find there's an element that, yeah, he is human after all. So when you see this all play out, like, yeah, it's a really cool moment to see all take place. And when you see that happen, it's really truly amazing to see that he turns out to be the hero that maybe not what they wanted, but it's the one that they needed.
Indeed.
So, yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, the humor in this, I have to remember that time period with it. So, seeing just how Booster Gold and Blue Beetle play off each other too, I mean, it's classic comedy. Like when you really go back in time and really see about like the classic comedy duos throughout history, there's always the Ted Kord who's so serious and is very straightforward, and Booster Gold who is sitting there just oblivious to the world around him and is just so much caught up in his own ego that he can't even see straight. Like I think that is something that shined through, especially in issue 6 and 7, the midway point while they're still in hell. And like I say, going back to the infamous scene inside Burger Buddies or Beazle Burgers, I should say. When you're seeing this all unfold, like it plays out so well that you can't help but just sit there and just be enamored by like their dynamic, and you're seeing the back and forth, and Ted just trying to keep it together, and Booster's like, well, why are you getting mad? Like I don't understand what I did. Like it's very Three Stooges-esque. That
Not only that, but I gotta give Booster just a little bit of breathing room, because think about this: he is a janitor from the 31st century, right?
I believe so. Something like that.
He still hasn't picked up on all of the social cues of the present day. So take that sense of ignorance is bliss and compound that with not picking up on social cues because he doesn't know the times. You really gotta. He's like that one uncle that you go, yeah, he's just that way.
Yeah. Like I say, he's just endearing enough that like, yeah, you can't help but root for him, even though he does some of the worst things possible that doesn't help anybody involved. So it's always kind of a cool thing to see how that plays out. And, I think just overall, the story had a lot of good moments too. And really it takes you back to a time era that we don't see a lot these days. And like I say, it works for the era it's in. So you have to really kind of keep that in perspective, that it's that late 80s, early 90s, edginess, if you will, that, yeah, you would never see in this day and age of comics. So that being said, I mean, we talked about some good things. What was some things you did not like about this?
I think it could have been shorter. I think we could have got away with 4 issues out of it. As much as we were getting the camp and the slap out of it, I think that a few pages could have been, shrunk down a few panels and could have got a more concise story. But all in all, that's pretty much my only real thing I got about it.
Yeah, I have to agree with it. I think the one thing that kind of took me out a little bit is for being, that long of a story, the time on the parallel universe I thought could have been a little shorter. Like I don't think that needed to be as stretched out as it was. I thought for just the initial they're in hell and they have to deal with those moments, and especially when you kind of dive into everything's really funny, everything's over the top. Then we go to the ice factor where they find her in hell of all places. And then you have that emotional moment where Fire and Guy, who have been trying to kill each other the entire time they've been together on this episode, they come together, and there's that heart moment, which is great. And then ultimately, like, if they ended it and brought them just back to Earth, I think it still would have worked. But like I say, it provided some really interesting moments, and I always like seeing, for me as a fan, characters that are in different lights, and I like to see something different. Like I say, the Metamorpho was a fun thing. The Captain Marvel was another, really interesting thing. Even the Elongated Man and Sue, and to see like their moments where, I mean, they're always just a very quirky, fun couple, and to see them just having that obliviousness of Ralph just, keep going back to the same joke, and it's not getting anywhere. Like, it's moments like that that are like, okay, I think this really works. But like I say, I think it was just that those extra elements. Like it probably could have been shorter, just maybe a page or two, or an issue or two. Like I say, I don't think we needed that whole back end, but I understand why they did it, because I think it had just ended like that. I could see a lot of readers kind of go, well, that kind of felt, too short. So they needed to do something. But I think maybe if it was cut down maybe one more issue and just maybe a little less time on the alternate timeline, I think it would have worked.
Agreed.
So that said, what is your grade on JLA Classified 4 through 9 entitled I Can't Believe It's Not the Justice League?
I'll give it a solid 7.5.
Okay.
I think it's right where it needs to be. It's not life altering. It's not, page burning. It's right where it needs to be, especially considering when the story was written, the context that it was in. Yeah, it's right there. It's 7.5. It's a good read, but it's not like, hey, I got to rush out and go get this.
Yeah, I could definitely see that with you. Like I say, that's the one thing, when you start thinking about, like where does it ultimately rank? And like for me as a reader, it definitely, as somebody that's read some JLI in, the heyday, so to speak, and, I always kind of team as well. I have to agree with you too. Like, I think the story is fun, and
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with doing a fun story, especially involving, the B-list characters, if you will, of the DCU, because you have a lot more freedom. Like, you can't really do the story with Superman and Batman. You have to do it with the members that you're allowed to do this with, and especially with Booster Gold and, Blue Beetle. There's always this little quirky, thing with them that it works because they're so classic in their demeanor and banter with each other that they're a timeless duo, and they never lose track of that. And that's something that I think the series really dives into and brings up, that no matter what, you're still going to have that classic humor, and then it just how it affects everybody around them. And especially to remember why, Guy Gardner is a very polarizing character amongst fans. There's a lot to really like how he is now. But back then, he was one of the most, in my opinion, one of the most despised characters of comics, because he's coming in after Hal Jordan, and really was representing that, I want to say like the edgier heroes, like I always kind of refer to comics as before Watchmen and after Watchmen. And to see when he came in, after that after Watchmen phase, and he was really getting pushed instead of Hal Jordan, and just, the different costume with the chains on it. It was just like, why do we need to turn him so completely, obnoxious? But he works because when you see him work with others, he does play a factor in, the overall story. And like I say, it's something about this era that I always find entertaining, and I really thought the story was good. And like, I have to agree with you. I threw my grade up there too. It's a 7.5 for me. Like I say, there's a lot that I really enjoyed, and there's a lot that I thought like it could have been a little shorter. It could have definitely hit its mark, and it definitely could have, been a little tighter at the back end, but it nailed its points. And that's still what makes it stand out. That if you're looking for a great story that involves the characters such as Blue Beetle, Booster Gold, the Elongated Man, like I say, heroes that we see work well as team members, but don't really get the chance to shine on their own. This story makes it work. And this story really has, a lot of funny moments that, is, a dated moment, sure, in some people's minds. But when you really dive into what makes it work with Booster and Blue, that's where it really hits home. And that's where, like, I love how they gave them their time to shine and their moments to really gravitate towards it and really run with it. And like I say, that's why that duo, no matter what they've gone through in the comics since that moment, they've really been a duo that people want to see cross over into the DC films, the television shows, whatever the next phase of media is, that you can see them together because they work so well.
They have a really good duo dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, you're exactly right about that. And that's the one thing. It's like when you can do that, it's what really hits home with it. And that's the point with it. And especially, yeah, there are certain elements that, don't necessarily work for the overall, but it doesn't take anything away from the story. So if you're looking for a great JLA story that's a little different, a little funnier, if you like your humor a little more edgier, this is a really great book to pick up, especially even formerly known as the Justice League, the prequel to this. They are very, very entertaining reads. They are a unique style of humor, so you definitely want to check it out if you're looking for something different. Like I say, not everything has to be the big seven at DC to be the Justice League, and this story definitely proves that. So before we get out of here, obviously tomorrow is New Comic Book Day. Tom, what should fans be looking forward to pick up at the shops this week?
You're talking to me, so it's going to be right there. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 112. It is going to be it's a lot. it really is a lot on your emotions, what you're going to get in this issue. And that's all I'm going to leave about that. But it is stunning, stunning ratings, stunning pages. Just, I love everything that Melissa Flores is doing right now. She can do no wrong in my book.
Oh, I agree
Or
with
in
you
this book.
completely. Yeah, I completely get you. You know, like I say, everything that she's done since she took over the book with Simona Dion Giffords, like since issue 101, they have been doing some really, really cool things. And especially with how she's really, made this story about the rise of Mistress Vile and taking such a classic character in the Rangers mythos and really elevating it to such another level, and now giving this crazy, crazy story going on that now we're entering the darkest hour, which is going to be a year-long storyline. And you almost think that's unheard of in comics these days too, to get that kind of run, that you have that much time to build.
Well,
And now,
on top of it, doing that, we're only getting one issue a month right now.
yeah,
It does give her a little bit of breathing room. I will give her that. And we've also got Ranger Academy coming out as well. Plus, if I remember correctly, and excuse me, I might actually make a Ranger faux pas here. Either
uh-oh.
Amy Jo Johnson's is helping with writing Ranger Academy, or she has her own book. So bear with me on that.
There's
So
a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff coming out for the 30th anniversary. So yeah, I would say if you're a Power Rangers fan or you want to get into the mythos, this is the perfect time to do it. There's so
yeah,
much coming out there that can definitely win you over, definitely elevate you into that realm. Like I say, for me, I honestly was never really into the Power Rangers until I started picking up the comics, and I was just blown away by Ryan Parrott's run. Then now I've gone back and started reading the Kyle Higgins stuff, and now the Matt Groom stuff has been phenomenal. And what Melissa's doing right now, absolutely lights out stuff. So you're really looking for a great recommendation, that's one to do. I know JJ was in the chat. Alice Never After #3 is coming out by Boom Studios as well.
boom.
That's a wild, wild story. So, I highly recommend that one too. He's got a review coming out for that tomorrow as well. Star Trek 12 from IDW Publishing. That's going to be a monster book too. There's so much wind that's coming out tomorrow. Like I say, it's ridiculous of what's happening. For me, one of my picks this week is this one that if you're not familiar with Comixology Originals, they are doing some of the best work in comics. And there is a book out right now called Black Sight, #1. Stephanie Phillips, Connor Boyle, and Tom Napolitano is on this, and the book is amazing. I can't recommend it enough. My review is up right now on nerdinitiative.com. And this book is something like if you're looking for just an amazing read, a lot of stuff going on, this is your book, and it's only getting started. Like I say, it is phenomenal. And I also kind of have to give myself a quick plug because this week on the ODPH, I'm actually going to be talking to Stephanie Phillips about this book because
Plug.
I'm super excited about this as well. Everything that she does right now is absolute amazing reads, whether you're picking up Humanoids 8 Limbs, which is a very great story, or without question the coolest book at the comic shops every time it drops, Grimm by Boom Studios. That book is not just a story, it's a vibe. It's a whole different element, and the latest issue, oh my god, it's so good. So if you want to hear more about this book, definitely make sure you're following the ODPH this week. We will have that episode up later, and you definitely don't want to miss this book at the digital comic shops with Comixology. Like I say, they got their unlimited line right there is some of the best stuff as well. And if you got to get a physical copy of something this week, man, there's so much to pick up that, honestly, if you need recommendations, we've got you, because starting at 9 a.m. tomorrow on nerdinitiative.com, the new reviews are dropping for what you need to go pick up at the comic shops. There's already some out today because DC Comics was out early today. Penguin #2, Flash #1. A lot of fans are talking about that one. Got reviews up for that, and we're going to be kicking off at 9 o'clock in the morning with a brand new Usagi Yojimbo book from Dark Horse Comics. So you definitely want to make sure you're following Nerd Initiative on all social medias. You'll be seeing the plugs going on. JJ does an amazing job sharing everybody's stuff and really helping the team promote. And like we say, we've gotten tremendous feedback from everybody. So you like what we're doing. We like hearing what your picks are. So definitely hit us up on social media and let us know what you're picking up at the shops this week. You know, if something we got to go cover, we'll definitely make sure we do that. And before we get out of here, Tom, do you think that we should give away the big announcement that is going on?
Yeah, let's give it away.
So for next week's show, we have a special guest coming on, and it's Marty from the Nerd Initiative Bullpen, along with...
There's more, but wait, there's more.
David Pepos will be live on Turn a Page next week. We'll be talking about a brand new book that he has out by Mad Cave called The Devil That Wears My Face. He's also is going to be taking the Punisher reigns from Marvel coming up too. If you're not reading his stuff, oh my God, Savage Avengers is a book we need to talk about on here. If you did not read that, amazing stuff. He's a fantastic writer. I am super excited to talk to him about this. Maybe I can find out a little more stuff about the OZ, which if you're not following that book, oh my God, we got a lot to talk about with that. So that'll be on Nerd Initiative's Turn a Page next week. So make sure you smash that subscribe button. You definitely don't want to miss that going on. You also don't want to miss the latest wrestling show that's going on, Wrestling Night Live going on, like I say, Wednesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Definitely got to plug Rich and the team over there. We got to get a graphic done for that on here, but you definitely want to make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. Make sure you're dropping everything, because with everything that is changing rapidly involving certain fandoms getting back to work, shall we say, there is going to be a lot of content hitting Nerd Initiative, and you definitely don't want to miss what we have coming, because if you think that we stopped here, let's just say this: New York Comic Con is going to be absolutely insane this year with what Nerd Initiative has planned. If you're going to be down in the Javits this year, Saturday night, 6 p.m., I believe, Nerd Initiative is doing a panel, and you definitely don't want to miss that. And then we do have more announcements coming in, especially we are bringing in one of the most fabled award shows in all of comics to a new home in January.
Cheers.
So a little hint of what's going on. So you definitely don't want to.
That was for Matt. That was for Matt, because, you know, Hops Geeks News. Cheers. Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, like I say, it's going to be a lot of stuff is going on with Nerd Initiative. So if you're not following right now, you definitely need to go fix that. And the easiest way to do that is hit this QR code, contact us, let us know what you're interested in checking out, because like I say, the plans that are coming out, the newsletter is amazing, and you don't want to miss out everything that is lined up for the big 2023 and an even bigger 2024 happening. So Tom, that being said, why don't you tell everybody where to find you and everything going on with Off the Cuff?
Off the Cuff, you can find me right here at this beautiful QR code. Scan it, learn it, live it, love it, link it. I don't care. I just want to see you there.
Absolutely. And for me, well, actually, we'll plug Matt since he could not be here. Hopsky Snooze will be back in the building next week, so Matt's got a lot of stuff going on there as well. You definitely want to check out what's happening with him. And if you want to find out what's going on with me and the ODPH, and make sure to hit that follow and subscribe button for that Stephanie Phillips interview. Simple, hit that QR code at odphpodcast.com. We'll definitely be your hookup, and we'll definitely have a lot of content dropping for you as well. So that being said, Tom, thank you as always for joining us in the studio. Well, I'd say the virtual studio this time. I'm so used to you being here. It's kind of weird without you.
It's okay. You're still my super buddy.
Oh, you. And everybody that's watching around the world, thank you so much for checking us out here on Nerd Initiative Turn a Page. And remember, when you're at the comic shops and you have a great issue in your hand and you see somebody struggling to find something, hand yours off to them, tell them to turn a page.